Um, this is the start of book 2, Baffin Island. So there's no backstory here as you're experiencing these characters. This will be the first time you would actually see them in the book. November 7th. Dream a little dream of me. Stop it, Hands. Her fingers brushed long black hair out of her eyes. The hair fell back slowly, almost floated into place, and she pushed it away again. Her small hands seemed to move of their own accord, grabbing, stitching, sewing. Stop it, Hands, she wanted to say, but she couldn't speak. She could only watch. It was wrong. It was dangerous. It was what she deserved for being bad. A dulled sense of dread filled her mind, a metallic gray cloud of doom. Her hands held a fuzzy, stuffed black and white panda. But her favorite toy wasn't exactly the way she remembered. It was the panda's body, all right, but it had no arms, no legs, and no head. The possessed hands reached down and came up with the orange and black arm of a stuffed tiger. Fabric torn where it had once joined at the shoulder, white fluff hanging out in long strands. Liu Jiandan's hands began sewing. The needle flashed again and again. The tiger arm joined the body. She felt a pinprick of pain. Jian looked at the possessed hand. A rivulet of blood trailed down her tiny, chubby finger. The droplet pooled in the joint between her fingers, then fell onto the panda body, staining the fuzzy white fur. Fear sent a wash of tingles over her skin, like a billion bites from a billion carnivorous bacteria. Her small body shivered. Her hand reached down again. This time, it brought up a long, dangly, gray and white leg from a sock monkey. The needle flashed. More stings. Possessed hands fixed the leg to the panda body, now black and white and marked with thin red streaks. Xiao Ting Zai Lai, she managed to say. Stop it, Hands. But the hands ignored her. Why had she spoken Mandarin? She used it so rarely now. But no, that wasn't right because she was 5 years old and it was the only language she had ever known. A lion's tawny leg, more pain, more blood. A pinkish arm from a plastic baby doll, more pain, more blood. Xiao Ting Zai Lai, she said, tears filling her eyes. Qi Ting Zai Lai. Stop it, Hands. Please, stop it. The hands ignored her. They reached down again, but this time, they didn't find fake fur or plastic. This time, they came up with something cold and solid. A small, severed head. Greasy black fur streaked with wet blood. Wide mouth, dead black eyes. Nothing like this had ever lived, nor would it. Not unless someone created it. Jian started to sob. The hands kept sewing. The vid phone let out its unignorable shrill blare. P.J. Colding jerked awake. He squinted at the glowing red clock set in the vid phone's base. 6:14 a.m. The time was bad enough, but it also showed the date. November 7th. Fuck. He'd hoped to sleep most of this day away. He slowly reached out and clicked the connect button. Gunther Jones's tired, melancholy face appeared on the flat panel display. The guy's big lips and sleepy eyes always made him look high. She's at it again, Gunther said, his voice sounding only marginally more awake than Colding's. 52 years old and she has nightmares like a little kid. Nothing she can do about it, Gunn. Cut the lady some slack. Give me the live feed to her room. Maybe it's not that bad this time. Gunther looked down, hand-seeking buttons somewhere off screen. He usually worked the night shift watch. Ensconced in the security room, he monitored 24 cameras that covered the barren area surrounding Janata's Baffin Island facility, the oversized hangar that housed the cows and vehicles, and the main building's hallway and labs. The main building's 8 apartments also had cameras, but those were deactivated on Colding's orders. Jan's room was the exception. Her cameras were always on. Gunther spent most of his night shift writing crazy vampire romance novels, but always kept a close eye on Jan. That was the man's main shift responsibility, really, to make sure Jan didn't kill herself. The vid phone picture changed from Gunther's face to a high-angle, black and white image. An overweight woman tossing and turning on her bed, heavy black hair covering much of her face. Colding could see her lips moving, see the look of fear on her face. There would be no going back to sleep this time. Okay, gun, I'll go take care of her. He hit the disconnect button, and the screen went black. Colding slid out of his bed, his bare feet hitting the frigid floor. No matter how high they turned up the temperature, the floor remained perpetually ice cold. He stepped into his ratty flip-flops, pulled on a robe, and slid a small earpiece into his left ear. He tapped the earpiece once, turning it on. Gunther, radio check. Gotcha, boss. Okay, I'm on my way. Holler if she comes out of it before I get there. Colding left his bread in the nightstand drawer. No need for the gun. He headed for Jean's. Her bleeding fingers had turned the panda from black and white to black and red. Panda body, tiger arm, sock monkey leg, lion leg, plastic baby doll arm, and the black head with a mouth full of pointy teeth. Her possessed hands held the strange creation, a misshapen, mismatched Dr. Seuss Frankenstein. Not again, Jan's little girl voice whispered. Please, not again. She begged, but like watching a familiar old rerun, she knew just what would come next. She started screaming a moment too early, just before the black eyes fluttered open and looked right at her. Primitive, unfeeling, but clearly hungry. Something shook her. The hodgepodge stuffed animal opened its mouth and seemed to smile. The devil's smile. Mismatched arms, baby doll plastic pink and tiger stripe orange and black, reached up and out for her. Just as the creature opened its mouth to bite, that something shook her even harder. Colding gently shook Jean one more time. She blinked awake, the expression of terror still fixed on her confused face. Sweat and tears matted her silky black hair against her face. Jean, it's okay. He'd watched this woman for 2 years, tried to help her both because it was his job and because she had become his good friend. For Jean, some days were better than others. The bad days hurt Colding, made him feel incompetent and powerless. He always reminded himself, however, that she was still alive, and that was really something. She'd tried to kill herself twice. He'd personally stopped both attempts. Jean blinked once more, perhaps trying to see through the hair, then threw her arms around Colding in a crushing hug. He returned the hug, patting her fears away as if she were his daughter and not 20 years his senior. I have dream again, Mr. Colding. It's okay, Colding said. He felt her tears on his neck and shoulder. She shook like a thunder-frightened puppy. Jean called every man Mister, although with her thick accent, it always sounded like Mista. He'd never been able to convince her to call him by first name. It's okay, Jean. Why don't you see if you can get back to sleep? She pulled away from him and wiped tears with the back of her hand. No, she said. No sleep. Jean, come on, just try. I know you haven't slept more than 6 hours in the past 3 days. No. Can't you at least try? No. She turned and slid out from under the covers, surprisingly graceful for a woman who carried 250 pounds in a 5'6" frame. Colding realized too late that she wasn't wearing any pajama bottoms. He turned away, embarrassed, but Jean didn't seem to notice. As long as I get some work done, she said. We have another immune response test this morning. Colding rubbed his eyes, partially because it kept him from looking like he was trying not to look. He stared at the familiar chessboard sitting on her dresser. She'd beat him 97 times in a row, if it was counting. Her bottle of medication sat next to the chessboard. A clear strip running down the bottle's side let him see how much fluid remained. Across the strip, written in neat black letters, were dates in descending order. November 1st on top, November 30th on the bottom. The fluid leveled out in November 7th. Yes, I am taking my meds, she said. I may be crazy, but I am not stupid. But was she taking them? Things had been getting worse. Her nightmares growing in frequency and intensity. Don't say that about yourself, Jean. I don't think you're crazy. You also do not think you are handsome, Jean said. This proves your judgment is questionable.